Everything changed the moment Caroline Harrington spotted the credit card bill swirling in the breeze on her massive mahogany desk. Her husband's name, Jonathan Harrington, sparkled in raised silver letters, but the receipt attached was more dazzling, an astronomical sum spent in the most luxurious boutique downtown by someone who wasn't her. A mysterious slip of paper, an unfamiliar name, scrawled on the back in bright red ink. Suspicion pierced her heart like a dagger. Right then, a storm was unleashed, twisted secrets, heartbreak, and betrayal spiraling out of control. Little did Caroline know her next move would make headlines across the city. Caroline Harrington considered herself the luckiest woman in the world, at least until recently. Married to millionaire real estate mogul Jonathan Harrington, she moved seamlessly through a life most people could only dream about. From philanthropic galas at the Ritz-Carlton to exclusive brunches with celebrities at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Caroline's days were a tapestry of gracious smiles, designer dresses, and lavish events. At 32 weeks pregnant, she was radiant, her hand often resting lightly on her growing belly as if she were cradling the future of the Harrington dynasty. Still in the hush of early morning, there was something deeper in Caroline's eyes, a flicker of doubt, a quiet fear. She carried a sense that her perfect life might be more fragile than everyone presumed. Occasionally, she'd wake from a restless sleep, her heart pounding with no apparent cause. The tapestry of her seemingly perfect marriage had begun to show threads of uncertainty. It was as if she sensed a faint rift forming below the glimmering surface. Jonathan Harrington was the consummate businessman. Born into a modest family, he had worked tirelessly to build one of the biggest real estate empires in California. A graduate of Harvard Business School, he partnered with some of the best-known names in the industry. Rumors circulated about a joint venture with Elon Musk's development team, though that had never been confirmed. Jonathan was unstoppable, ambitious, magnetic, and cunning when necessary. The Harringtons' multi-story Los Angeles penthouse overlooked the shimmering city lights. It was perched in a location so exclusive that neighbors included a handful of A-list celebrities. Their net worth soared beyond imagination, a culmination of real estate investments, stock portfolios, and carefully managed public relations. Despite his busy schedule, Jonathan always made time for Caroline, or at least that was how it had been. He would whisk her away to lavish dinners, plan spontaneous weekend getaways to Lake Tahoe, and appear at every doctor's appointment to hear their baby's heartbeat. Caroline's world lit up when Jonathan was by her side. She adored him, not simply because he was rich, but because he saw life in grand terms. He set her heart racing with visions of a dazzling future, a future that glowed with promise for their unborn child. But an unspoken distance began creeping in. Jonathan's phone calls were brief and grew sporadic. His text messages, once an endless stream of affectionate banter, turned transactional "will be home late" or board meeting dinner, don't wait. Caroline tried to console herself. The real estate market was sizzling. Jonathan could well be on the brink of his biggest coup yet. She reasoned that stress often spiked around such deals. Still, life had grown oddly silent. Family dinners were replaced by Caroline eating alone, while rereading old text messages from Jonathan, reminding herself of the closeness they once shared. She pushed away subtle feelings of insecurity, believing that the man she had married remained loyal, just busier than ever. Everything changed the morning she found a crumpled invoice for an elegant platinum credit card in the mailbox, an account typically used for hush-hush personal expenses. The charges were bizarrely extravagant, and at places Caroline had never visited. There were sumptuous spa treatments at a hidden cliffside resort in Malibu, $1,000 dinners at Providence, and a breathtaking sum for a single piece of jewelry from Cartier. Caroline recognized Jonathan had means, but these were lavish purchases made outside her knowledge. Who was he spoiling? Tension coiled in her chest. She wanted to believe there must be a reasonable explanation. Perhaps Jonathan was planning a spectacular surprise for her. But her intuition, sharpened by love and concern, told her a different story. As she traced the line of mysterious transactions, it led to a single name that left her breathless: Sasha Belmont, a woman Caroline had never heard of before. Little did Caroline know the gossips at charity lunches and high-powered fundraisers had begun whispering about a young beauty seen on Jonathan's arm at private gatherings. For the moment, Caroline only had scattered clues. Yet she was about to plunge headfirst into a heartbreak so profound that it would rock her entire world, threatening not just her marriage, but her unborn child's future. The hush of speculation stirred like a breeze through the lavish corridors of Los Angeles's upper echelon. Attending a benefit for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Caroline recognized those polite smiles and side glances from acquaintances. She passed by a cluster of well-heeled women, their laughter dipping in volume the moment she drew near. She felt the unspoken tension in the air. "Caroline, darling, you look radiant," greeted Amanda Ross, a socialite known to orchestrate some of the biggest philanthropic events in the city. Her gleaming, diamond-studded necklace jangled softly as she leaned in for an air kiss. "How's Jonathan? We haven't seen him all evening." Caroline forced a bright smile. "He's caught up in a big real estate deal, but he sends his love." It was an automatic response, a reflex. For all her internal doubts, Caroline still believed in her husband. She refused to jump to the worst conclusions, at least not publicly. After the fundraiser, she retreated to her car, her heartbeat thundering. An uncomfortable feeling told her these people knew more about her own husband than she did. The tension grew so intense that the moment she got home, she abandoned her usual composure and frantically started searching for clues. She began by calling her best friend from college, Hannah Lee, now working as a communications director at a major talent agency. If there were whispers swirling in Hollywood's corridors, Hannah might have caught wind of them. "There's definitely talk," Hannah admitted, her voice hushed. "I've heard your husband's name linked with a woman named Sasha Belmont. She's some kind of influencer or model, I think. People say they've spotted them together at private parties in Bel Air." Caroline's heart clenched. "Thank you," she whispered, her throat tight. Once off the phone, she tried to gather her thoughts. If Jonathan truly had an affair, it seemed the whole city knew but her. Each new piece of gossip was like a needle in her skin, stinging. But Caroline was no pushover. She'd once been a rising star in the corporate world, working for a boutique investment firm until she decided to devote herself to philanthropic pursuits. She wasn't about to wallow in self-pity without facts. That was how she found herself dialing the personal number of Henry Goldstein, their longtime family attorney and financial advisor, with a sterling reputation in high society circles. Henry had personally handled the Harringtons' finances for years and was privy to all the intricacies of Jonathan's personal spending. Caroline requested a private meeting in the conference room of Goldstein and Partners, an ornate office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the LA skyline. When she arrived the next day, Henry greeted her with a mix of warmth and concern. "Caroline, you look pale," he remarked. She sank into a plush leather chair, her posture tense. "I need to see everything," she said, voice quivering. "Jonathan's accounts, credit cards, recent transactions, everything." Henry hesitated. You know Jonathan's finances are mostly in joint name, but some business accounts are separate. Are you sure you want to do this, Caroline? We can't breach certain agreements without raising suspicion. Caroline inhaled, steeling herself. Find a way, Henry, please. For the next hour, they pored over spreadsheets and account statements. Caroline's eyes scanned line after line of expenses. Many seemed legitimate real estate deals, lobbying fees, contractor payments. But then further down the list, a string of repeated charges, all referencing SB, a cryptic code appended to each transaction, exotic travel packages, designer clothing from boutiques in Beverly Hills, jewelry from Tiffany & Co. The intangible proof of hush-hush spending was right there in black and white. Henry cleared his throat. Caroline, before you jump to any conclusions, you need to think about how you want to handle this. Freezing accounts or confronting Jonathan could damage your marriage. You should be certain of your next step. She nodded, eyes brimming with emotion. In that moment, Caroline realized her entire future, her baby's future, hung in the balance. The suspicion that once flickered in her mind now stood illuminated by raw data. Jonathan was showering someone named SB, quite likely Sasha Belmont, with gifts, trips, and experiences worthy of a billionaire's mistress. And the hush-hush platinum card, he used it as if Caroline would never look. Leaving Goldstein and Partners, Caroline felt both empowered and terrified. She had confirmed enough to know her husband was leading a secret life. The question was, why? Was it fleeting lust or a deeper emotional betrayal? Her heart pounded, fear swirling in her stomach. She envisioned Jonathan turning cold, refusing to explain or even blaming her for snooping. Yet her protective instincts flared. She refused to surrender her baby's security or her own dignity, no matter how painful. She intended to defend her family from this impending storm. And little did she know just how monstrous that storm would become. It started with a single text from Jonathan to Caroline. We'll be traveling for the weekend. Important business meeting in Napa. Take care. The brevity stung. No invitation to join him, no question about her needs. Just a cold, dismissive note. Convinced the business meeting was actually time spent with Sasha, Caroline decided to unearth the truth. She placed a call to Hannah. I need your help, Caroline said. Can you trace Jonathan's whereabouts? Check social media. Talk to your contacts. Hannah, ever the loyal friend, promised to gather what she could. Several hours later, Hannah's call came in. Caroline, they're at the Carneros Resort in Napa Valley. Sasha's been posting cryptic photos on her Instagram stories, flashes of the resort's lush vineyards, fancy dinners, a man's hand with a certain iconic watch. I'm sorry, but it matches Jonathan's favorite Rolex, the one you gave him last anniversary. Caroline's stomach churned. She gazed at her reflection in the hallway mirror, her free hand cradling her baby bump. Suddenly, everything felt precarious. More than heartbreak, it was a sense of betrayal sinking deep within her. But she refused to let fear paralyze her. She rushed to book a flight to Napa, intending to confront them in person, no matter the cost. Once in Napa, she took a private car to the Carneros Resort. The evening sky glowed over an expanse of vineyards stretching into the distance. Caroline felt the baby flutter in her belly, as if sensing her turmoil. She clutched her phone, loaded with screenshots from Sasha's Instagram. Her plan was uncertain, but she needed answers. Swiftly, she learned Jonathan's name was indeed listed for a private villa under his corporate account. She felt her heart pound like a drum as she approached the suite. Inside the lavish suite's foyer, laughter rippled through the walls. Caroline froze outside the door, her breathing ragged. She considered turning back. What good would it do to watch Jonathan in the arms of another woman? As her mind spun, the door opened, and there she stood, Sasha Belmont, draped in an ivory silk robe, slender and graceful, her lips curved into a startled O at the sight of a visibly pregnant Caroline. In the tense seconds that followed, a swirl of impressions hit Caroline Sasha's perfectly waved auburn hair, her flawless makeup the faint scent of jasmine. Jonathan stepped forward from behind Sasha, face draining of color. "Caroline," he choked out, eyes flicking to her pregnant belly. Caroline steadied herself, refusing to break under the weight of the moment. "Is this your business meeting, Jonathan?" she asked, her voice trembling yet firm. For a split second, Jonathan seemed at a loss for words. Sasha smirked, crossing her arms. "Well, I see the cat's out of the bag," she said with a casual tone that only deepened Caroline's fury. "Caroline, I can explain," Jonathan stammered, stepping between the two women. But Caroline shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "There's nothing you can say that would erase this. You lied. You betrayed me. And you think you can just toss our marriage aside for her?" Sasha's smirk fell into a pout, and she turned to Jonathan. "I thought you told me she was fine with you traveling alone," she said, with calculated innocence, glancing at Caroline's baby bump. "We were supposed to have a discreet weekend." Caroline's anger flared. "Don't you dare talk about discretion. You've been flaunting my husband's money on social media. I've seen the posts. I know you've been using his platinum card at the highest-end stores in Beverly Hills." Jonathan raised his voice, desperate to reclaim control. "This got out of hand," he admitted. "I never meant to hurt you, Caroline. Hurt me? You're not just hurting me, Jonathan. You're putting our child's future in jeopardy. Do you have any idea what this is doing to me?" Caroline's voice cracked, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. She pulled her coat around her, as if shielding her unborn baby from a cold wind. In a swift motion, she turned on her heel and left, refusing to let Jonathan's words break her further. She thought she heard him call after her, but she didn't stop. Her heart thundered, emotions swirling between devastation and steely resolve. Sasha's image, smug, young, confident, seared itself into Caroline's memory, fueling a rage she never knew she possessed. By the time she reached the lobby, Caroline knew she had to protect herself and her baby. All illusions of a normal life had shattered, and it was in that moment she decided she would not be the victim. She called Henry Goldstein from the hotel's entrance, the night air chilly against her tear-streaked cheeks. "Henry," she said in a shaking voice, "I want to freeze his accounts. All of them. I can't stand by while he spends our family's future on her." She heard Henry hesitate on the line. "We have a plan for such contingencies," he replied gently. "But are you sure you want to do this now?" Caroline brushed away tears, the unborn child's future at the forefront of her mind. "Yes," she said, her voice steady with newfound determination. "I am." Sunlight bathed the pastel walls of Caroline's bedroom as she stared at her reflection, wrestling with an internal storm. She hadn't slept much since returning from Napa. Every time she closed her eyes, she pictured Sasha's smug face. Worse, the heartbreak in Jonathan's eyes haunted her dreams. Did he regret it, or only regret getting caught? The thing was clear. She couldn't let her husband carry on this affair while she watched helplessly. She dialed Henry Goldstein again. "Freeze the accounts," she ordered, recalling her vow. "I want immediate action." Henry's tone was measured, like a cautious surgeon preparing for a risky operation. "We can freeze joint accounts and the credit cards under your legal capacity," he explained. "But Jonathan's business accounts might not be fully accessible. They're intertwined with his corporate partners. We also need to ensure you aren't infringing on any of Jonathan's separate property rights. Do what you can, she insisted. When you have the details, let me know. Henry promised to proceed, though Caroline's mind whirled with questions. What would Jonathan do when his lavish spending hit a dead end? Would he rush back to her arms or run to Sasha for comfort? Her heart ached, just imagining Sasha's cunning expression. Her phone rang at midday. She recognized Jonathan's number. For a moment, she considered letting it ring out, but curiosity and a sliver of hope compelled her to answer. "Caroline, Jonathan," began, his voice hoarse with fatigue. "Why are the cards declining?" She inhaled sharply, then summoned every bit of composure. "You know why," she replied, forging a calm tone. "I can't let you drain our accounts on that woman, Jonathan." There was a pause, then a flash of anger from him. "You have no right to freeze them. My business depends on access to certain lines of credit." Caroline's temper flared. "And our marriage depends on basic respect, which you've trampled on. If you want to talk about finances, talk to Henry Goldstein. I'm sure he'll brief you on the legalities." Jonathan's exasperation was tangible. "You have no idea the damage you've done. I have deals in motion that are time-sensitive. Stopping my financial flow could torpedo them." His voice softened. "Caroline, please, don't do this. We can figure it out." She hung up, hands trembling from the emotional maelstrom. Maybe he was telling the truth about business deals. But how could she let him run off with Sasha on lavish trips, ignoring her and their unborn child, all while claiming these finances were vital to business? That evening, a battered sense of normalcy hung in the air of the Harrington penthouse, though Jonathan hadn't returned. Alone with her unborn child, Caroline found herself recalling simpler times, like their honeymoon in Santorini, the nights they fell asleep laughing at silly inside jokes. She remembered how they'd once been partners in everything. Now, they were adversaries in a financial and emotional war. Her phone chimed. A new text from an unknown number. "You can freeze his cards, but you can't freeze his heart." Sasha. Caroline's blood ran cold at the audacity. It seemed Sasha wasn't content to simply steal Jonathan away. She wanted Caroline to suffer too. Furious, Caroline blocked the number. For a moment she let tears come, her hands pressed protectively over her belly. She had always dreamed of a warm, loving environment for her child. Instead, she was in the midst of a meltdown so public that whispers had begun to spread throughout her social circle. Nevertheless, as night fell, Caroline gathered her resolve. She had to strike a balance, protect her child's future, keep her health stable, and figure out where Jonathan's heart truly lay. Her mind played through possible scenarios. Maybe if he left Sasha, they could salvage their marriage. But the mere thought of trusting him again seemed impossible. And if he refused, then she would fight tooth and nail to ensure her baby's needs came first, even if it meant divorcing Jonathan, even if it meant letting go of the life she once cherished. Unknown to Caroline, her next crisis lurked just around the corner, an unexpected complication that would send her to the hospital and set in motion an even more dramatic turn of events. Just 2 days later, dawn broke over the city. With a startling twist, Caroline was rushed to the hospital with early contractions. The tension and stress seemed to have taken a toll on her body, and at 33 weeks pregnant, both mother and baby were at risk. She found herself hooked to monitors in Cedars-Sinai's high-risk obstetrics unit, the beep of machines forming a grim background chorus. Her obstetrician, the renowned Dr. Elizabeth Clark, entered with a reassuring presence. "Caroline, your blood pressure is elevated," she explained gently. "We need to keep you under observation. to make sure your baby is safe. Stress can trigger premature labor. Lying there all Caroline could think about was how fragile life had become. One moment she was freezing credit lines to protect herself from betrayal, and now her own health was at stake. She dialed Hannah for emotional support. Her parents were away on an international cruise in Europe, and she didn't want to worry them just yet. Word must have spread quickly, because a few hours later, the door to her private hospital room swung open to reveal Jonathan. He looked disheveled, tie askew, and eyes rimmed with exhaustion. Without a word, he hurried to her bedside, scanning her worried expression. "Are you all right?" he asked, voice thick with concern. Caroline studied him through tired eyes. A swirl of emotions welled in her chest. Anger, relief, hurt, love, betrayal. "The baby's stable for now," she managed, her voice shaky. "But Dr. Clark says stress is a big factor." He grasped her hand, searching her gaze for a hint of forgiveness. "I'm sorry, Caro. I never wanted this. I never meant for you to be hurt." She swallowed hard, tears threatening to fall. "I wish that were enough," she whispered. "But sorry doesn't change what you did. It doesn't change that I had to freeze our accounts to keep that woman from bleeding us dry." Jonathan's brow creased. "We need to talk. Maybe the hospital isn't the right place." Caroline shook her head firmly. "Actually, this is the perfect place. Because our baby is on the line, Jonathan. I'm not going to dance around the truth anymore. I know everything about Sasha." He exhaled, sliding a chair closer to the bed. "It started as excitement, I guess," he confessed, haltingly. "She's younger, vibrant. I've been feeling burned out. Everything with the real estate empire was wearing me down. Sasha made me feel alive again." Caroline bit her lip until she tasted blood. "So while I was home pregnant with our child, you needed someone to make you feel alive." Her words dripped with bitterness. Jonathan closed his eyes. "I'm not proud of it. We can't change what happened, but maybe we can move forward." "Move forward how?" she asked, voice trembling. "By ignoring what you did and letting you keep your mistress on the side." "Never!" She was breathless with anger, and the monitor beeped a warning. Dr. Clark poked her head in her face, a mask of disapproval. "We need to keep stress levels down," she said sternly to Jonathan. "Caroline's at risk for early labor. If you can't remain calm, I'll have to ask you to leave." Jonathan stood, guilt etched on his face. "I'll go. But please, let's talk when you're stable. We can figure out a solution." Caroline watched him leave, an ache in her chest. She wasn't sure if it was heartbreak, longing for the man she once knew, or the sting of betrayal. Possibly all three. That night, as the city lights glittered outside her hospital window, Caroline realized she wasn't in this fight alone. She had a baby depending on her, an innocent life that would soon enter the world. She owed it to her child to stay strong. Despite the swirling chaos of heartbreak, betrayal, and new responsibilities, Caroline resolved to focus on her health. She would put the accounts on lockdown. Let Sasha try to use that platinum card now. And when she regained enough stability, she would decide her future with or without Jonathan. 3 days into her hospital stay, as Caroline stabilized, a drama of epic proportions played out outside her room. Jonathan was absent. Business obligations or emotional avoidance, Caroline wasn't sure. Meanwhile, Sasha Belmont seized the spotlight like a starlet on a stage. Not content to remain a hidden mistress, Sasha appeared in the hospital corridor, decked in towering stilettos, a designer handbag on her arm. She dramatically demanded entry to Caroline's room, causing an immediate uproar with the hospital staff. "Ma'am, this is a private ward," a nurse insisted, blocking Sasha's way. "Only immediate family or approved visitors." Sasha's lips curved in a sneer. "I'm here to see Jonathan Harrington's wife," she announced, voice laced with a brazen confidence. "I'm practically family." Caroline, who overheard the commotion from her bed, felt her heart gallop. She pressed the call button for the nurse, anxiety gripping her like a vice. When Dr. Clark arrived, she wore a look that could freeze a volcano. "Who is that woman?" Dr. Clark asked, arms folded. Caroline exhaled shakily. "The reason I'm in this mess," she replied. "Please don't let her in. I don't need that kind of stress." Dr. Clark nodded. "I'll handle it." When the doctor stepped outside, she confronted Sasha firmly. "This patient is under strict orders to avoid stress. You cannot see her without her permission. And quite frankly, she doesn't want to see you. Please leave." For a moment, Sasha appeared flustered. Then she produced a smirk that made Caroline's blood boil even from behind the closed door. "Fine," Sasha huffed, turning on her heel. "But tell dear Caroline that I'm not going anywhere." Later that afternoon, Caroline's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number again. She dreaded the possibility it was Sasha. With a sigh, she opened it. "Caroline, if you think freezing the accounts will stop Jonathan from seeing me, you're mistaken. Money isn't the only thing that keeps us together. I've got my own resources, Sasha." Caroline's stomach twisted. Sasha's arrogance was infuriating. Did Jonathan feed her these lines, or was she orchestrating her own game to unseat Caroline from her position as Mrs. Harrington? The mere idea that Sasha might be pushing for a permanent role in Jonathan's life made Caroline tremble with anger. But she recalled Dr. Clark's warning, so she took a calming breath, refusing to let Sasha's jibes push her over the edge. An hour later, the hospital's phone system beeped. Caroline answered, half expecting more drama. Instead, it was Henry Goldstein. "Caroline, we froze the major accounts, as you asked," he reported. "We've also flagged any attempts to use your joint credit cards. Sasha has apparently tried some charges at a luxury boutique denied." A flicker of grim satisfaction coursed through Caroline. At least on the financial front, she held the power. For now. Henry continued, "Jonathan's corporate partners are in an uproar. They're worried about the real estate deals. However, I've explained the situation quietly. I believe your father-in-law's lawyer is also being brought in to mediate." Caroline's breath caught. Jonathan's father, Russell Harrington, was the founding patriarch who had handed Jonathan the keys to the family's real estate ventures. While Russell had officially stepped back, his influence was legendary. "Is Russell furious?" she asked softly. "I think he's more concerned than furious," Henry said. "Expect him to reach out. He might want to keep this scandal out of the public eye." And so the pieces continued moving on this chaotic chessboard, each new development straining Caroline's nerves. As night fell, she stared at the faint city glow through the hospital window. Sasha was stepping out of the shadows, brandishing her claims on Jonathan. Meanwhile, Caroline's father-in-law was poised to intervene, reminding everyone of the Harrington legacy at stake. Caroline pressed her hand to her belly. She owed it to her child to remain calm and steadfast, no matter how Sasha flaunted or threatened. This wasn't just about a man's wandering heart. It was about protecting her unborn baby's place in a complicated, high-profile family. 2 days later, as Caroline rested in her hospital bed, she heard a polite knock on the door. In walked Russell Harrington, the silver-haired patriarch of the Harrington dynasty. With measured steps, he approached his daughter-in-law. Behind him strode a quietly imposing man in a tailored suit, Russell's personal attorney, Robert Healy. "Caroline," Russell said softly, taking a seat by the bed. "How are you feeling?" Caroline forced a polite smile. Despite the tensions, she respected Russell. He had always been kind, albeit reserved. A bit better, thank you. Dr. Clark wants to keep me under observation for another week. The stress caused some complications. Russell's eyes darted momentarily to Caroline's belly before settling on her face. I'm sorry for everything you're going through. I understand Jonathan has complicated matters. He hesitated as if wrestling with words. I never imagined my son would do such a thing. Caroline's chest tightened. Hearing it from Russell, the patriarch of the family, gave the betrayal a sense of finality. I never imagined it either, she said, voice tremoring. And now there's this woman, Sasha, who thinks she can barge into our lives like she belongs here. Russell nodded gravely. My attorney and I have looked into the legal aspects of your situation. He signaled for Robert Healy to open a folder. Robert cleared his throat. We understand you've frozen certain accounts. As a major shareholder in Harrington Real Estate, Russell is concerned about how these actions could impact business liquidity. We'd like to propose a controlled unfreezing strategy solely for business transactions. Personal spending would remain restricted, especially if it involves that mistress. Caroline's eyes narrowed. So you want me to unlock Jonathan's corporate funds so he can keep running deals but keep my freeze on his personal cards? Yes, Robert replied carefully. Jonathan is contractually obligated to meet certain business commitments. Failing to do so could lead to massive lawsuits from our partners. Russell believes we must separate the personal conflict from the company's operations. Caroline considered it. She didn't want to see Jonathan's entire empire collapse, especially because part of it was her child's future inheritance. But she couldn't ignore the personal damage done. I'm willing to cooperate, she finally said, but only if Jonathan agrees to cut ties with Sasha. I refuse to enable any more of her spending sprees. Russell nodded. I'll speak to Jonathan. But Caroline, I do ask that you handle this discreetly. The Harrington name has weathered many storms, yet scandal can be corrosive. If the press gets wind of our internal conflicts... He paused. We'd like to avoid a PR nightmare. Caroline's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, why should I protect a cheater? But she also recognized that a public scandal wouldn't help her child. I understand, she managed, but that woman is relentless. She marched right into this hospital to see me. Russell's gaze flickered with disapproval. That won't happen again, he said more to himself. We'll set up security measures. As they ended the meeting, Russell took Caroline's hand, surprising her with a show of genuine empathy. We want to keep you and the baby safe, Caroline. Our family stands behind you despite Jonathan's actions. Please remember that. A wave of relief washed over her. She nodded, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. For a moment, she felt a fleeting sense of comfort, like she wasn't alone in this war, that the Harringtons, in their own complicated way, still valued her. Russell left with Robert Healy trailing in his wake, leaving Caroline alone again in the sterile hush of the hospital room. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the path to resolution, keeping business afloat while forcing Jonathan to confront his betrayal. If he truly cared about the family's legacy and needed business liquidity, he might choose to end his affair with Sasha. But as she thought of Sasha's haughty stance and Jonathan's wandering heart, Caroline realized it might not be so simple. Betrayal isn't undone by a few legal documents, and it wouldn't be long before another twist of fate disrupted her precarious sense of progress, one that would force everyone to show their true colors. A week later, Caroline was released from the hospital, much to her relief. The doctors insisted on bed rest at home, monitoring her closely for any signs of stress-induced contractions. Though somewhat weak, she felt eager to reclaim a semblance of normal life. Within a day of her returning to the penthouse, Jonathan appeared carrying a large bouquet of lilies, the same flowers he'd once gifted her on their first date. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice gentle, contrite. He set the flowers down on a marble side table, looking at her with cautious hope. Caroline exhaled slowly. Tired but stable, she replied coolly, sinking into the sofa. The baby fluttered in her belly, a reminder of the innocence at stake in this turmoil. Jonathan eased himself onto a nearby chair, as though unsure if he was welcome. "I've spoken to my father," he began carefully. "He's told me about the arrangement to unfreeze corporate accounts." "Thank you for that." Caroline bristled. "I did it for our child's future, not for you to keep gallivanting around." He nodded, eyes downcast. "I understand. I've stopped seeing Sasha. She's furious, threatening to tarnish my reputation if I don't give her more money. But I'm done. It was a mistake." She searched his face, trying to detect any flicker of deceit. "Are you telling me the truth, or is this just damage control because your father demanded it?" Jonathan's gaze hardened, then softened again. "It's the truth, Caroline. I was infatuated, yes. But these weeks watching you suffer, nearly losing our baby, it changed everything. I realized what I was risking." Caroline wanted to believe him, but the wounds still felt raw. "She tried to visit me in the hospital," she said, voice trembling. "You have no idea what that did to me." Jonathan's face paled, and he rubbed his temples. "I'm sorry. I can't take back what happened, but I can try to make it right." He stood tentatively, extending a hand to her. "Let me prove to you that I choose us." She paused, heart pounding. The rational part of her brain screamed caution, yet her emotions, tangled and bruised, longed for the man she once loved. "We'll see," she said at last. "For now, focus on fixing this mess, and don't think one conversation erases weeks of betrayal." He nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes." Over the next few days, Jonathan hovered around the penthouse like a remorseful shadow, cooking small meals, carrying packages, helping Caroline remain comfortable while on bed rest. She caught glimpses of the caring husband she used to know. Still, trust was fragile. She rarely let him close enough to hold her. Meanwhile, Sasha Belmont seemed to fade into the background. No more flamboyant messages, no scandalous Instagram posts featuring Jonathan's watch or glimpses of a Harrington estate. Caroline almost dared to hope Sasha had moved on, perhaps latched on to another wealthy man. But hope can be deceiving. Late one afternoon, Caroline received a frantic call from Hannah. "Caroline, you need to check out Sasha's latest post on TikTok," Hannah breathed, voice trembling with shock. "She's gone public." Heart racing, Caroline opened the app. Sasha's video, professionally shot and staged, garnered thousands of views already. The video revealed text, "The true story of a cheating millionaire, my emotional trauma." Sasha played the role of an innocent victim, tearfully describing how Jonathan had misled her, promising her a life together. She claimed she had ended up exploited, left without resources, when Caroline froze the accounts. She even called Caroline a domineering wife who used her unborn child as a pawn. Caroline's blood boiled. With each swipe, more baseless accusations flew across the screen. Sasha peddled a sob story of how she was a naive influencer, lured by Jonathan's wealth and status, only to be discarded. She threatened to expose private financial documents if Jonathan didn't compensate her. Within hours, tabloids picked up the story, splashing headlines about Millionaire Harrington's Mistress speaks out. Some painted Sasha as an opportunist, while others demanded a statement from Caroline or Jonathan. Tweets flooded social media, fueling the rumor mill. Jonathan stormed into the penthouse that evening, face drained. She's threatened to sue me for emotional distress, he raged. I have no idea what documents she claims to have. Caroline felt a rising panic. We never had a prenuptial agreement that covers blackmail. What if she does have something, photos, personal texts? Who knows? They both turned to Henry Goldstein, who arrived at the penthouse with a stoic expression. We can file a cease and desist, he suggested, but if Sasha is truly out for blood, she'll keep stoking public drama. She's trying to force a payout or ruin your reputation. Let her ruin me, Jonathan muttered, tension carving lines into his face. I don't care anymore, as long as she stays away from Caroline and the baby. Caroline sat on the sofa, feeling the swirl of chaos reassert itself. The Harrington name was being dragged through scandal. The public meltdown was far worse than anything she'd imagined, people calling her a controlling wife, tabloids speculating about their marital finances. Yet amid the uproar, Caroline felt a strange sense of unity with Jonathan for the first time in weeks. They were cornered together, defending themselves and their unborn child against a storm of malicious gossip and potential blackmail. She wasn't sure if that was enough to salvage their marriage, but in the frenzy of the moment, they were at least on the same side. One question loomed large. Would Sasha's grandstanding succeed in forcing a settlement, or would it lead to a deeper, more destructive unraveling of everything Caroline held dear? The next few days spun into a surreal dance of legal maneuvering and frantic public relations. Henry Goldstein and Russell Harrington's attorney Robert Healy crafted a united front, demanding that Sasha retract her allegations or face defamation charges. The tabloids feasted on the drama, with paparazzi skulking outside the Harrington penthouse at all hours, hoping for a glimpse of Caroline's pregnant form or Jonathan's harried expression. Inside the penthouse, the atmosphere was stifling. Caroline tried to maintain her bed rest, but her nerves were raw. Jonathan spent hours on conference calls, negotiating deals and calming investors, while simultaneously coordinating with the crisis management team to address Sasha's claims. At one point, a messenger arrived with a crisp envelope addressed to Jonathan. Caroline looked on, anxiety gnawing at her as Jonathan read the letter. His face hardened. "It's from Sasha's lawyer," he announced. "She's threatening to release intimate photos and messages if we don't settle." Caroline's stomach lurched. "Are there photos?" She hated the question, but she needed to know. Jonathan avoided her gaze. "Yes," he admitted, voice subdued. "Nothing too explicit, but enough to be embarrassing. I was foolish." She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply to remain calm. What do they want? Money primarily, but also an acknowledgement in the press that she's not some gold digger. Jonathan's mouth curled in disgust. Caroline felt a surge of protective instinct. "We can't let her bully us," she said. "She's feeding lies to the public, twisting the narrative." Henry and Robert rushed to the penthouse for an emergency meeting. Around the living room table, they pored over legal precedents and weighed the risks. The baby fluttered restlessly in Caroline's belly, as if sensing the tension. "Paying her off might seem easier," Robert commented, steepling his fingers. "But that sets a dangerous precedent. She could come back demanding more." Henry nodded. "We could countersue for extortion if she follows through. However, a lengthy court battle would generate more publicity, more stress." Jonathan buried his head in his hands, frustration emanating from him like a palpable force. "I just want this over with. If I pay her, I'm validating her. But if I don't, she'll go scorched earth." Caroline touched her belly, praying for strength. "I won't sacrifice our child's well-being," she said, voice quavering. "I can't endure months or years of lawsuits, but I also can't let her walk all over us." A somber silence followed. Then Jonathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and tensed. "It's Sasha," he said, grimacing. "Put her on speaker," Caroline ordered quietly. With a quick press, Sasha's voice filled the room. "Jonathan," she purred, though her tone carried an undercurrent of venom. "I see your lawyers are trying to strong-arm me. You know this could be settled so easily if you just meet my terms." Jonathan clenched his jaw. "We're past that, Sasha," he said. "You're blackmailing me. We have no reason to trust you." She gave a soft laugh, the sound dripping with malice. "Oh, but I think you do. Because as soon as I press send on a little file you'll be plastered all over the internet, quite the scandal for a man in your position." Caroline stiffened, hatred sizzling in her veins. She leaned forward, speaking for the first time. "Sasha, this is Caroline. Whatever you think you have, it won't last. You might get your payday, but you'll destroy your own reputation in the process." An edge crept into Sasha's voice. "I don't recall giving you permission to speak to me, but since you're here, let's be clear. Your precious husband lied to me, promised me a future, then tossed me aside. So if you want me gone, quietly pay me, or watch me expose everything." Caroline exchanged a look with Jonathan, who was white-knuckled. Henry motioned at the phone, signaling that they shouldn't inflame the situation further. Jonathan exhaled. "We'll be in touch through our lawyers," he said, ending the call. In the silence that followed, the weight of Sasha's threat pressed down on them. Then Henry cleared his throat. "We have a plan," he said simply. "She's given us an ultimatum, but we can turn the tables. We'll file for a restraining order based on harassment, gather evidence of her blackmail attempts. If she releases anything, we sue for punitive damages." Robert nodded. "I'll coordinate with Russell. We'll have to publicly deny her claims. We can't capitulate. Yes, it'll be messy, but we have to ride out the storm." Caroline's heart hammered. The idea of a full-blown legal confrontation with a vengeful mistress was terrifying. Yet a strange resolve formed within her. She was done being a victim. If Sasha wanted war, then so be it. The Harrington family would meet her in the courts if necessary. She placed a hand gently over her belly, silently promising her unborn child that she would fight. Even if Jonathan's betrayal had sparked this crisis, Caroline refused to let Sasha dictate the future of her family. The legal clash began almost immediately. Sasha's attorney filed a suit claiming emotional distress, painting her as a fragile model and influencer misled by Jonathan's false promises of commitment. Jonathan's legal team fired back with a countersuit accusing Sasha of extortion and slander. Press conferences loomed, with the media eager for sensational sound bites. Strangely, the swirl of legal threats and public meltdown brought Caroline and Jonathan into an unexpected alignment. Night after night, they huddled in the penthouse living room, reviewing legal briefs, with Henry and Robert discussing statements for the press. In these tense sessions, Caroline glimpsed once more the Jonathan who charmed her in their early days, a man who thrived under pressure, who tackled crisis head-on with a determined spirit. His mistakes still loomed between them like a wounded elephant in the room, but for now, they joined forces to protect their child, their family name, and each other's dignity. Caroline's baby bump had become quite pronounced, a testament to the life soon to arrive. She endured a delicate balance of bed rest, brief hospital checkups, and legal strategy calls. Every so often, her obstetrician, Dr. Clark, would remind her to put her health first. "Your blood pressure is stabilizing," Dr. Clark said during a routine check. "The bed rest is helping. Keep stress at bay." But stress was hardly avoidable. Whenever Caroline ventured online, speculation about Sasha's lawsuit peppered social media. Some netizens mocked Sasha's transparent gold digging, while others labeled Caroline a vindictive wife trying to hold on to wealth. Paparazzi snapped photos of Caroline's every exit from the hospital, analyzing her maternity outfits like she was a reality star. The entire fiasco felt like living in a fishbowl. Meanwhile, Russell Harrington took a more behind-the-scenes approach, leveraging his connections to quiet potential business fallout. Discreetly, he reached out to certain tabloids, offering them exclusive real estate scoops in exchange for fairer coverage of Jonathan. The Harrington machine, well-oiled over decades, swung into full gear to minimize the scandal's damage. Caroline, while still reeling from betrayal, found solace in knowing Russell stood firmly beside her. She'd become not just a wife, but also the mother of his future grandchild, and he wasn't about to let Sasha sabotage that legacy. Then, on a crisp morning in late autumn, a breakthrough arrived. Henry bounded into the penthouse, an air of triumph about him. Sasha's legal counsel reached out, he announced, setting down his briefcase. They want to settle. She's realized our countersuit for extortion could leave her with nothing if we push it to trial. Caroline's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Settle on what terms? Henry opened a folder. Their initial ask was a six-figure sum and a public apology from Jonathan. We, of course, refused. Our counteroffer is zero payout and a mutual non-disclosure. If she releases any more content or allegations, we'll pursue her for punitive damages. Her attorney seems inclined to accept because it spares Sasha further legal costs. She doesn't have the war chest that the Harrington family does. A wave of relief swept over Caroline, though it was tinged with bitterness. So we just let her walk away. She caused so much damage. Henry shook his head. True, but from a legal standpoint, this is the cleanest resolution. Dragging it out in court keeps you in the headlines for months, maybe years, and your health plus the baby's well-being should come first. Jonathan, who had been silent, nodded. Let her go, he said quietly. I've had enough of Sasha Belmont to last a lifetime. The important thing is that we can move forward. Caroline met his gaze. If we settle, I want it in writing that she can't contact us or any of our family members ever again. Henry smiled. We'll see to it. In the days that followed, the settlement was hammered out. Sasha agreed to sign an NDA that barred her from speaking publicly about Jonathan or Caroline. She also dropped her emotional distress suit. In return, Jonathan and Caroline dropped their countersuit, allowing Sasha to fade into obscurity. The tabloids, hungry for fresh drama, soon shifted their attention to other celebrity scandals. The Harrington scandal began its slow fade from the headlines. Yet the hardest part remained rebuilding trust within the marriage. One evening, after the dust had seemingly settled, Jonathan found Caroline standing by the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing at the shimmering cityscape. He approached quietly, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. The warmth of his touch brought tears to her eyes. I'm so sorry, he murmured, voice trembling. I'll never forgive myself for what I put you through. No amount of money or settlement can mend the pain I caused. Caroline bit her lip, tears slipping down her cheeks. Do you love me? She asked softly, turning to face him. His eyes shone with sincerity. With all my heart. I was a fool, letting loneliness and pressure push me into something that nearly ruined everything. But I swear, Caroline, I'm here for you, for us, if you'll let me be. She studied him for a long moment, remembering the heartbreak, the betrayal, the public humiliation, yet also recalling the man who once courted her with unwavering devotion, who knelt by her hospital bed, who shielded her from paparazzi. Their life had been tested by perhaps the worst trial imaginable. I still love you, she admitted, voice thick with emotion. But trust isn't rebuilt overnight, Jonathan. It will take time, maybe a long time, before I feel safe again. He nodded, tears gathering in his own eyes. I understand. I'll be here ready to earn that trust day by day. With trembling hands, Caroline reached out, pressing her palm against his. For that moment, they simply stood there, two souls, bound by both heartbreak and hope. The baby kicked softly, as if offering its own gentle encouragement. Perhaps this was the dawn of a new chapter, a chance to grow stronger, to learn from mistakes, and to welcome their child into a family that had weathered a mighty storm. The shadows of betrayal might always linger in the corners of their memories, but in that quiet moment, love persisted. And sometimes that's enough. After every dark hour of suspicion, deceit, and heartbreaking revelations, Caroline finally discovered her own strength, standing firmly for her child and herself, even when it meant freezing accounts from a hospital bed. Jonathan, haunted by guilt, learned that true love and family are priceless, and no fleeting affair can replace genuine devotion. In a whirlwind of lawsuit threats, tabloid frenzy, and blackmail, they confronted the ultimate question: was their marriage worth saving? Love is seldom straightforward, especially under the harsh spotlight of wealth and public scrutiny. Yet, from every shattered fragment of betrayal, Caroline and Jonathan chose to piece together a new beginning, one based on honesty, repentance, and a promise for the future. If you found yourself caught up in their emotional journey, please hit that like button, share this story with friends who love real-life drama, and subscribe to the channel for more captivating tales.